Are you calling me old, huh?
What are you talking about? You're the same age as me, Robert. I don't need to hear this from you.
But seriously, Susan's skin is so much firmer. Hard to believe you two are sisters.
Well, Susan is 10 years younger than me, so of course, there's a difference. Plus, our facial features are different. Somehow, I feel like I drew the short straw.
Drew the short straw with what? Why does my wife have to be the unattractive one?
You sure have the guts to say that to your own wife?
Lately, Robert, my husband, has taken to hurling such insults at me every time he comes home from work. He always had a joking tone before, but it got worse after my younger sister Susan, who we hadn't seen in a while, came to visit the other day. I am Margaret, 30 years old. My dad runs a small factory. We were never rich, but we weren't poor either, so we led a decent life. I got married 2 years ago and continued working. Robert was a salesman for one of our company's clients. He wasn't exactly what you call an elite, but he seemed kind. I thought I could have a simple, peaceful life with him. Not being one for the limelight, I always believed that a quiet life without any drama was the ultimate happiness. My sister Susan is 10 years younger than me and was still in the 11th grade when I got married. Our family is from Dallas, but after graduating high school, Susan moved to Boston for college and was living alone there. Although Robert and I occasionally visited my parents, 2 years passed without seeing Susan. And then, after a long time, Susan came to visit us. She had grown into a beautiful, sophisticated young woman, perhaps influenced by Boston, and seemed quite flashy.
Man, it must be nice to be in a salaried family.
Susan didn't like the factory. To her, our dad, who always wore his work clothes and worked from early morning till late at night, seemed poor. She often said she wished she had been born into a regular salaried family. Robert, seeing Susan, completely relaxed and was visibly happy. He never helped with housework, but he went out of his way to take care of Susan, and I couldn't help feeling a bit off about the difference in his attitude toward me. Susan, you become so beautiful, just like a model.
Stop it, Robert. You're teasing me.
No, really. You don't look like sisters at all.
Well, I've always been told I don't look like Margaret since I was a kid.
I guess so. They both agreed, getting carried away in the moment. After that day, Robert's verbal abuse towards me got worse. Every single thing was compared to Susan, which made me feel sick. Plus Susan, who never used to come by, started visiting frequently. Each time, Robert would welcome her warmly, piling chores on me to entertain her. They'd sit on the living room couch, sipping drinks and laughing away.
Hey, Margaret, we're running low on drinks. I want something more stylish to drink. Go, buy something, will you?
If you want something, go, get it yourself. I'm not your housekeeper. What are you talking about? Susan's a guest. It's our job to entertain her. So go, buy some drinks. And you? Just delighted to do so? It's pathetic. What did you say?
Margaret is just jealous because she's ugly. How about it, Robert? Shall we go shopping together?
Oh, should we? Susan, you're so kind. And with that, they left and didn't return for 2 or 3 hours. I wondered what they were up to, but I was too busy cleaning up their mess to think too deeply about it. Little did I know, it would lead to such an event. 3 months after Susan started coming over, I came home to find divorce papers with Robert's name on them on the table. We'd never even spoken about divorce before. When I checked the closet, all of Robert's clothes were gone. What's going on? I tried calling Robert, but he didn't answer. Then I got a call from Susan.
Yoo-hoo, Margaret.
Sorry, I'm a bit tied up right now.
Tied up? Like, Wondering where Robert has gone? How did you know that? Actually, I'm with Robert right now.
Are you talking about my husband, Robert? What do you mean?
Well, we've eloped.
Huh?
For a moment, I didn't understand what she was saying. I really pondered what eloping meant. It was a word I should have known for the longest time. Yet, I couldn't grasp it.
Elope? What's that?
Oh, come on. Elopement is elopement. Forbidden love. You know, Robert and I have run off together on a journey of love.
Are you joking?
Of course, I'm serious.
My husband and sister eloped. It felt like something out of a cheap romance drama. Not something that would happen to me. My life was supposed to pass by ordinarily without much ado. And above all, that's what I had hoped for more than anyone else. Robert is my husband. Susan, you are my sister. You two eloping is impossible.
Oh, come on. That's exactly why we eloped. If Robert wasn't your husband, there would be no need for us to run away, right? But you know what they say. The greater the obstacle, the hotter the love burns.
You two think you can do this and get away with it?
But it can't be helped. We're in love.
What about Robert? Is he there? He's not answering my calls.
He doesn't want to talk to you anymore. But since I'm your sister, I went out of my way to let you know. Be grateful.
With that, Susan hung up the phone. No matter how many times I tried to call back, there was no answer. I immediately contacted our parents and my in-laws to report the situation. Both sets of parents were shocked, thinking this must be some kind of bad joke, just like I did. But in reality, they had meticulously planned to elope. Robert had already quit his job, and Susan had submitted her withdrawal notice to the university. Furthermore, Susan had withdrawn all the money from our parents' accounts and even took all the cash that was left at home. It might have been possible to find out where they were by hiring a private investigator. Paul, my father-in-law, offered to cover all the costs to find them and have a talk, but I refused. It was Paul's right to search for them and talk, and the in-laws could do as they pleased, but I never wanted to see Robert's or Susan's face again. I'm truly sorry. What Robert did is unforgivable. Paul apologized, bowing deeply to the floor. My dad looked downcast, and both my mom and mother-in-law were in tears. However, the situation was even worse because it involved my sister. Since it was our own family member, it was impossible to comprehend what our parents were feeling. Robert had fled after borrowing money from colleagues and friends, who then came to me asking what happened or even came to our house demanding repayment. Every time, I had to explain the situation or apologize, and it left me completely exhausted. Pity was evident in the eyes of Robert's friends, making me feel utterly miserable. Seeing their faces, I thought I couldn't possibly share this embarrassing story with my own friends. My own husband and sister having an affair. What a foolish story this turned out to be. I must have been a fool not to realize until it got to this point. Looking back, there were many signs, yet I never doubted them. It never crossed my mind that people could betray you like this. Not your sister with your husband. Not your husband with your sister. Such tales might be common in the world, but you never expect them to happen to you. While I've told my close friends about the divorce, I still haven't been able to share the painful details. Did Robert have an affair? They'd ask. Well, something like that. I'd respond vaguely. It was much later before I could tell my friends the truth. For a while,
I didn't feel like doing anything, and I quit my job and shut myself in, my mental state in shambles. I even thought everyone must be laughing at my disgrace. I went back home, but hearing laughter around me made me stay in my room with my ears covered for days. Eventually, both Robert's parents and mine cut ties with the couple and stopped all communication with them. As time passed, it slowly started to heal my heart. It took a year before I could look people in the eye again, but gradually I grew tired of causing worry and wearing a gloomy face. Despite doing nothing wrong, I couldn't help but feel the weight of others' gazes on me. While I was wasting my time aimlessly, those two were out there, probably living it up. And it finally struck me how silly I was being. I have every right to enjoy my life too. With that realization, I could finally lift my head and walk proudly again. I'm okay now. Really sorry for worrying you. Both my dad and mom seemed relieved by my words. Looking back, they probably had it much harder than I did. Yet, I worried them so much. After that, I started helping out at my dad's factory. Working there, I could forget the unpleasantness and time seemed to fly by. The memories of those two would occasionally cross my mind, but mostly I was able to leave without recalling them. And so, 20 years passed, and I had nearly forgotten all about them. Dad fell ill and passed away 3 years ago. Out of consideration for me, perhaps he never mentioned Susan's name to the end. But he had such a peaceful look on his face when he passed. It looked to me like he was smiling. I believe he was satisfied with his life, and Mom said the same. Margaret, I think Dad had a fulfilling life because of you, she said. I couldn't stop my tears at her words. It's been 3 years since Dad died, and I'm still running the factory, living fulfilling days. Out of the blue, Robert reached out to me, shattering the quiet. It had been so long. For a moment I didn't recognize who it was.
It's me. Have you forgotten? It's Robert.
Robert, you mean?
Yes, your ex-husband, Robert.
What do you want after all this time?
I just had some good news and thought I should let you know.
I really don't need to hear it.
Don't be mad. It's not bad news for you. Me and Susan's kid got into college. You, on the other hand, seem to be living the same lonely life.
I wondered why he would contact me, and then I thought it must be something trivial. Did he expect me to feel regret or envy upon hearing his news? Perhaps Susan told him to reach out to me. I could almost see Susan's face gleeful at that thought. Why do you think my life is lonely?
Come on, you're still single, right? Susan told me. She said you're the type to brood over things, that you'd never accept the reality of her taking your husband. You must have been holed up all this time.
Typical Susan. She seemed to know me well. But people change over 20 years, and I'm no longer who I was back then. I am married with 2 kids.
What?
After 20 years of no contact, it's odd that he would assume I'm still single. Maybe he thought I was still carrying a torch for Robert. Now that would be a joke.
Your partner must be some poor guy, right? Your dad was just a worker at a small factory.
Dad passed away 3 years ago.
Huh?
I thought about informing Susan, but I didn't know where she was. Mom said there was no need to go out of our way to tell her, so we didn't contact her.
So the old man's dead? Does that mean the factory closed down too? That's a shame.
You don't know anything, do you? Don't you read the economic magazines?
What are you talking about?
My dad's factory specialized in making precision electronic parts, And there was an engineer who fell in love with the precision components my dad produced. This engineer frequently visited my dad and offered to support his company. Together, they achieved success in developing new parts. Their precision became widely recognized, and my dad's expertise started to garner both domestic and international acclaim. Before he knew it, the factory had become famous. It's often featured in economic magazines. I don't know, nor do I care to know what kind of life Robert and Susan are leading, but they seem to be out of the loop when it comes to current affairs. My dad's factory has expanded to a second one now, and it's making over $100 million a year.
Really? Seriously?
We all work hard for it, so we didn't have the time to reminisce about you guys. Your kid got into college? I couldn't care less. Did you think I had a family here to share such joys with?
That's...
Still the optimist, I see. Robert fell silent at my words. Perhaps he thought time would have forgiven everything. And to come to me with such news, I can't fathom he's in his right mind. I am relieved all over again that I divorced such a man. That's why I have my happiness now.
So you just said your father's factory is making $100 million a year?
And what of it?
Well, Susan's his daughter. She has a right to her inheritance. Hand it over.
There's no such thing.
You plan to keep it all to yourself, huh? But I won't let you. We have something called forced heirship right here.
Even if that were true, Susan's claim could be offset by the money she took with her. Besides, at the time of his death, my dad didn't have any assets. I said it was my dad's factory, but he was nothing more than an employee.
What do you mean?
The factory almost went under because of the money Susan took. No matter how much we struggled, the debt just grew, and when we were at our wits' end, the man who offered to help bought the factory from Dad. That's how we managed to settle the debts. In truth, my dad, who was originally a technician, had also wanted to focus more on that than on management. The buyer was young and had just started his own business, but he was enthusiastic and honest, and he valued my dad's skills highly. That must have communicated to my dad. So the sale went through. The factory continued to employ all its workers without fail, and Dad could dedicate himself to developing parts which truly made him happy.
What a foolish thing to do!
What we do is none of your business. There's no need for you to comment on it.
So in the end, the factory was just taken over. What are you doing there? Working as a part-time lady? Tough luck.
The man who bought the factory is my current husband.
Huh?
Yes, I was drawn to the sincere personality of Timothy, the husband who had been coming to see Dad. My parents felt the same way, so when it came to me marrying Timothy, they both cried tears of joy. When we informed Robert's parents about our remarriage, they were genuinely happy for us. That was the last time. I haven't been in contact with them since. I stopped reaching out because I think it's painful for them to be reminded of what Robert did when they see me.
Your husband? What about him? Did you deceive a man and steal a factory from your father?
Really? You can only come up with such low-quality ideas. I don't even feel like talking about this anymore.
Just wait. My son got into college. And not just any college, but a prestigious private university. He'll be your nephew.
So what?
Well, I mean, give us a celebration gift. The cost for college, all in all, is $30,000.
Are you stupid? Why would you think I would pay that money?
Because your husband is making a profit. So it wouldn't hurt to give that much for your nephew's celebration, right?
Is that why you contacted me? All this talk about property and whatnot? Is it all about the money? When I asked that, Robert's voice seemed to crack. Maybe he was a bit flustered. Seems like I hit the mark.
After 20 years to come asking for money from an ex-wife you abandoned, what kind of nerve? Sure, that child is my nephew. But considering what happened, doesn't a 50-year-old man understand he's not in a position to demand anything? I feel deeply ashamed that I was married to such a man.
Actually, the company I work for is about to go under, and I'm on the list to be laid off. If things stay this way, I won't be able to pay for my son's college fees. So help me out. He's your beloved nephew, isn't it?
I don't know this child you're speaking of, nor do I have any obligation to celebrate. You've done enough to ensure that. Don't you understand?
It was a long time ago. Can't you just let bygones be bygones?
With that, Robert started crying over the phone. Using tears to persuade me, my heart only grows colder. Does he think crying will get him forgiveness? I don't have the slightest belief that there will be a day when I can laugh and meet with them. Don't expect a day to come when I let this go ever.
So you don't know about Dad and Mom? I tried contacting them, but I couldn't get through. And when I went to their house, it was on the market. They haven't, have they?
I don't know, or rather, you haven't contacted them once in these 20 years?
I didn't have any business with them.
So now you're in trouble, and that's why you're contacting me?
I have no other choice. Do you know where they are? If you know, tell me. They are my parents.
Actually, both of them are now living in a paid nursing home, having sold their house for the money. I haven't seen them for a long time, but I recently received a postcard letting me know. I think we won't meet again. Now I just hope they live peaceful days. If Robert were truly concerned about his parents' well-being, that would be one thing. But for someone who's only looking for their whereabouts to ask for money, why should I bother telling him?
I truly don't know. I haven't been in touch since then either. So I'm going to hang up now. I can't be of help to you, or more like, I don't want to be. I have no intention of getting involved, no matter what happens. Don't forget that.
How could you?
After that, there were a few more calls, but I blocked them. Then it seems Susan reached out to Mom.
Hey, Mom, please, I need help. Robert said he'd managed to cover college costs by asking relatives, but he got turned down and, well...
During that conversation, when their son pressed them on why relatives had refused to help, it seems Susan and her husband finally told their son about the circumstances of their marriage. That's when their son blew up, yelling,
That's the lowest of the low. I'm ashamed to have you as parents. This is the worst.
And he left the house. Robert was fired from his job and couldn't find another, was kicked out of his apartment for not paying rent, and is now forced to live a hard life in a dingy, cheap apartment in an alley without sunlight. He's working part-time jobs from morning till night, but it's not enough to catch up with his debts. It seems Susan was crying on the other end of the phone, begging for help.
What goes around comes around. A perfect example. Happiness built on the misfortune of others can easily crumble. You should chew on that thought for the rest of your life,
Mom said before hanging up the phone. We haven't heard from them since, so I don't know and don't want to know where they are or what they're doing. I just want to keep working hard and honestly, protecting my family and the technology left behind by Dad's factory. I am supported by my family smile. I'm truly happy every day.